Hello and welcome back to Handheld Computing. Today we're having a look at the SL10, a Sony Clie device released in 2002 and running Palm OS 4.1s. This isn't Sony's first Palm OS device by a long shot. In 2000, Sony released the S300. This introduced Sony's jog dial and a memory card slot in an attempt to put them on the same playing field as Handspring, who had their innovative expansion card slot. Bear in mind, in 2000, Palm was still selling the Palm 5 and Palm 5X. So in my mind, this puts Sony and Handspring on a level playing field and miles ahead of Palm, their primary competition. In the following 2 years, Sony really pushed the boundaries of what Palm OS can do, releasing several models. It introduced 16 meg of RAM, high-resolution screens, MP3 capabilities, cameras, and innovative form factors. So amazingly, Sony actually released 13 different PDAs on 6 different chassis in the 2 years prior to the release of the SLSJ series. That's a lot of innovation. In case you were wondering, Clie stands for Communications, Link, Information, Entertainment. I think it's quite a nice word, even if the acronym is a bit clunky. Before getting into this review, I'd just like to say that if you do have a Palm OS device, whether that's actually Palm or Sony or it's one of the Handspring series, do check out PalmDB. They're attempting to create a database of all the applications for Palm, many of which are starting to disappear from the internet itself. So you might have some that you can contribute, or you might just find that there's a couple of applications there that you actually want. In 2002, there was still high demand for PDAs, as smartphones weren't really a thing. In addition to this, the marketplace was crowded as so many different designs and companies were in that space. So Sony introduced the SL/SJ models as a back to basics, a budget model. The SL10 in particular has a black and white screen, there's no headphone jack, we do have a memory card slot, and it's powered by AAA batteries. This is the last device that Sony produced to be powered by AAA batteries. It's also the penultimate device to have a black and white screen. The SJ20 had a lithium ion pack and black and white screen, and the SJ30 had lithium ion pack and colour screen. Don't be confused about the SLSJ, they're part of the same family. The 3 devices were released almost simultaneously. So let's take a look at the box. As we can see straight away, we've got a high resolution display. This is 320 by 320 instead of the 160 that Palm OS normally uses. Bear in mind that Palm has only just released the M515 at this point, so 160 by 160 is still the standard resolution on any Palm device. It's got a memory stick slot, there's 8 meg of RAM, and of course the jog dial with back button. Very handy for one-handed operation. So there's a few optional accessories, including a cradle. So this one doesn't include a cradle as it is a budget model. There is obviously the memory stick camera and various cases. On the bottom, we can see the world time application. This is included in ROM. There's a thumbboard mentioned, which is an optional accessory. And of course, it advertises the fact that it includes documents to go. This is the basic version and needs installing separately. On the bottom, we've just got a load of information about various copyrights and patents owned by Sony. While on the right-hand side, we can see the package contents. So the handheld, the USB cable, a protective cover, the stylus, AAA batteries, installation CD-ROM, lots of paperwork, and some graffiti stickers. On the left, we've got computer system requirements. So this will work with Windows 98 and up, and you're going to need a 133 MHz processor. Ooh. It also says that it works with XP, but interestingly, the installation disk that comes with this won't allow you to sync with XP. You need to download a patch. On the back, again, we can see the Documents to Go logo, IntelliSync, the Hotsync logo, and QuickTime. There's a little bit of product information, so it tells you which version we're running, the processor, which is only a 33 MHz Dragon Ball. We've got infrared, that high resolution screen, the jog dial, and the battery life at 20 days. If you read the small print, it essentially means that you get about 10 hours on a pair of batteries. So let's take a look inside the box. As I say, at the top we've got a load of paperwork. So we've got the graffiti stickers, which are handy guides, stick either on the machine or on its case as a reminder of what you're doing. We've got an end user license agreement, safety regulations guide, a guarantee, although I suspect I'm outside of guarantee now. We've got a getting started guide in various languages. Another poster guide for getting started. Important things like installing the batteries. We've got leaflets for IntelliSync, because this only includes the trial version. We've got a clear accessory guide. We'll look at that properly in a moment. And I read this first. It looks very thick, but it's not that thick because it's in multiple languages. And as you can see, although it doesn't mention it, it does include the SJ20. We'll pop the accessories to one side. So my box noticeably is missing the CD-ROM. We'll come back to that in a minute. That's the unit itself. It's quite small. I've already put some batteries in. This is the protective flap, so it clips on the back using those two slots. And then you simply push the catch up and it locks it in place. As you can see, mine's a little bit cracked from wear, but it does protect the front surface very well. And of course, when you fold it back out of the way, it flattens out the base of the unit so it doesn't rock around if it's on a table. Finally, there's a sync cable. This isn't the original one, but it's a mini USB rather than the standard micro which came in later. Notably, there's no power pack in here. There's no cradle. As I say, this is a budget model. Palm had already released its own budget range with the M100 series. Looking at the accessory guide, we can see cradles. Obviously, you might want more than one cradle. This could be useful if you've got a work and a home space. These are for slightly different models. We've got a USB Hotsync cable, so this one actually comes with an adapter so it can sync off the base part rather than just using the mini USB. We can see the camera, we've already mentioned that, the thumb board, there's a gamepad. You can also get Bluetooth memory sticks for these. I've never had a play with one, but I'd be interested to see how compatible they are with newer things. Obviously, portable AC adapters, a battery pack. This is aimed more at the lithium-powered ones rather than the ones with AAAs where you just put new batteries in. Car power adapter, and there's an audio adapter. Now, I believe this will work with the SL10, although it's been difficult to verify that anywhere. And this would effectively allow you to add MP3 capabilities, making it far more useful as a personal entertainment device. We've got some cases to fit various things, travelling pouch. Obviously, if you've got adapters and things, it's useful to keep them all in the same place. Screen protectors and various stylus options. On the back, there's a note that we can buy software and save money if we use Hand and Go, but I'm not convinced that's still available. I'm going to remove the flap just so that we can get a good look at the unit. Starting at the front, the first thing you'll notice is that the LCD is actually black, and this is unique to this device. We've got the usual screen buttons, the graffiti area, we've got the usual 4 buttons for application launching and up, down, and that's the front. On the left side, we've got the jog dial, so this light lets you go up and down across applications, and there's a back button. Pressing and holding this can be set so it powers it on, powers it off, or selects an item. At the bottom, we can see the mini USB socket where we would sync. Looking on the other side, there's nothing. On the back, we can see the battery compartment where we put AAAs in. There's also a reset button, and unlike most Palm devices, the reset socket is big enough that you can use the stylus without taking the cap off to reveal the pin. On the top, we've got the infrared slot, the memory card slot, the power button, and of course the silo for the stylus. This particular stylus, while very thin, at least isn't telescopic. On the other end, we have a lanyard hook. Moving to the bottom, we can see the standard cradle interface. So buying one of those cradles, this is where it would connect. So we'll pop some batteries in. Just to show you the first boot sequence, it's just the standard Palm sequence. So we've got the standard calibration screen, select a language, which it'll confirm. After all, you don't want it in the wrong language when it's set up. And you set up your region, time zone, daylight saving, date, etc. And finally, you get the option to experience graffiti or not. So nothing unusual about the starter. So other than the fact that it's black when it's turned off and that it's a high resolution screen, you might also realize that it's permanently in 4-bit grayscale and there's no way to change it back to 2-bit. This does mean that sometimes it looks like it's got lower contrast than the M500 series launched the year earlier. However, in real use, the contrast is basically the same. Of course, the reason it feels like there's less contrast is because for some of the images, they're a paler grey, and so the contrast is actually lower. Switching to an app that's only in 2-bit, we're going to use the calculator for this, you can see that actually the contrast is very high on the Sony. The SL10 is running Palm OS 4.1 S, where the S, I suspect, stands for Sony. There's no real change to the standard applications, so Datebook, To Do, Calculator and MemoPad are all unchanged. The address book also looks the same until you click New, at which point you can see it's possible to add an image. These images can either be drawn in Clie Paint or uploaded via the software supplied. This means, a bit like on a modern phone, you could have an image for each person in there. However, it doesn't show as a thumbnail in the main view, so it's not particularly useful. Also, the images take up a minimum of 50K, so it wouldn't be long before your internal memory was full, and it won't allow you to add an image from an external memory card. Oddly, Notepad, the screen drawing application, is missing from the operating system. Whether this was because Sony didn't license it, or whether it was simply to save space in the ROM, I can't be sure, but it does seem an odd thing to be missing. There are quite a few new applications built into the ROM. We might as well start with the Clie demo. So we get a nice little bit of animation and then a spec sheet. Tells us a little bit about the software that's included on this device, a little bit about Pocket Gear, which is a photo application, and Photo Stand, which acts as a photo stand, a demonstration of what the Pocket Gear looks like, and Clie Paint, demonstrating you can draw on your screen. There's a little bit about documents to go. You can see from this spreadsheet that you get a lot more columns and rows on a high resolution screen. And of course the world alarm clock, which we've already seen mentioned on the box. And a nice message to finish: enjoy your Clie. Let's have a look at the Clie Paint application. So you're met with this screen allowing you to choose one of 4 sizes of image. So of course this size would fill the screen. This size leaves room for the toolbar below. This is a standard palm resolution, and this is a sub-palm resolution, leaving enough room for the toolbar below, should it be running on a 160/160 device. We're going to go with a big image. So the first thing that's slightly unusual about this application is there's no menu button. So instead we've got a toolbar that we use for everything, starting with this one, which allows you to save an image, create a new image, or load a previous image. This is an undo, redo button, so putting a line on the page, we can then undo it and redo it. We've got the palette, obviously 16 greys on this device, a thickness selector for the various options, and then we've got a pen, an eraser, a colour selector, and the scroll button. So this is a single use scroll button. It just scrolls up and down to reveal the bit that we're missing under the toolbar in our image. On this side we have a button that scrolls through 3 different options for the lower tier. So we've got line, open circle, open square, and open oval. We've got text, and then we've got filled object. And finally, we've got a clip art selection. So it's only a small selection of clip art. You can choose them in various sizes by using the bottom toolbar, and then move them around when you're done. We've got a spray can. We've got this blur tool, which blurs the edges of any image that you've drawn. And then we've got this one, which is called Mosaic, and it just pixelates whatever you select. Again, with text, you can choose various sizes. It pops them on the screen. Selecting this bar will reduce the size. You can obviously change colors as well. And we'll pop it there. Once you've settled an object in a position, there's no way to select it, to move it, to copy it, to cut it, to paste it. It's all rather remiss really, so it's a very basic art program. In addition, there's no way to zoom in on anything, so you can't change things at the pixel level like you could in Teal Paint, for example. So as an art package, it's missing a lot of fundamentals. As a way of writing a quick note or making a very quick sketch, it works fine. Next up, we've got the memory stick backup. This is a really useful feature and allows you to back up the entire system into one of 5 slots and then restore all on the device. Next up, we've got memory stick gate. This is a very useful file system, so it allows you to transfer files to and from the memory card from your internal memory. So you might, for example, have a program you want to move to your external storage or vice versa, and this is how you do it. It's very straightforward to use. You just swap between the 2 areas. If you are wanting a file to be able to launch, you actually need to make sure it goes in the right folder. which is launcher. Other than that, all very straightforward. After that, we've got memory stick import. This program doesn't work unless you've got the driver installed on your computer. And I couldn't get this to work with Windows 10. It will probably work under Windows XP, but essentially it allows you to transfer files to and from the memory stick directly, which would have been a very useful thing to be able to do. Next, we've got memory stick auto run. So this allows you to set a program to automatically launch once you pop the memory stick in. And what it does, it copies that program to the internal memory and then launches it. So we're going to set big clock. We've had success, so it's made the auto run feature. And I'll just eject the memory card. And then when I pop it back in, let's acknowledge this, loading the application and running it. So this is very handy if you've got several memory cards or you've got specific programs you want to run. You can set them up to run automatically when you insert the memory card. Then we've got PG Pocket. So we can see a sample file here, which is the one used in the Clie demo, which is the wine glasses. On here we've got various options. There's a return button, there's a full screen button, there's a zoom button. So although you can't edit your pictures by zooming in, you can zoom in and out in PG Photo. You can see there's a lot of lag as it does it. Pressing menu, you can manually zoom in and out, zoom to max. Let's do that. You can see actual pixels, you can fit it to screen. There's a power off selection and a find selection. Under options, there's just an about, which tells you about picture gear. So if we go back, we've got a couple of other options. We can select the details of the files, and of course you can add to them. So if you've taken a photo, for example, with the optional camera, you could then add notes to it. This would allow you to write about why you took the picture or what it was for, and other useful information. We can of course delete any photos. We've got an import-export option, so we can export them to the memory card or back again. As you can see, it takes quite a while for an export to be done, and we can also open any pictures in Clie Draw. So you can add to them and save them. Going back to PG Pocket, we can now see both of those in the thumbnails. We've got a couple of other options here. We can list details. Hitting this one should open Photo Stand. However, I've been unable to locate Photo Stand, so I've not been able to install it to show you. Again, we've got an export button, so we could do a multiple export this time. We've got a categorize button, so if you've got a lot of photos you can categorize, and finally we can select ones to delete. You can also at the top swap between the memory stick and the internal memory. Swap to this format. There's some sample ones already installed on the memory stick, including a beautiful doodle by me. And finally, for the built-in ROM apps, we have World Clock, which we saw on the box initially. So in this application we've got 3 world times below and a standard clock at the top. There's a couple of options, not many, so you can set a day color. So for example, it's currently Saturday today, so if I select Saturday and change it to a dark grey, it colours in the bar here to show that it's Saturday. So you might set this for weekends. I don't really see the point, if I'm honest. To change the time on any of these 3, all you do is select it, pick the time difference or the place, hit OK, and then what it does, it moves it along the bar so you can see it's today or it's tomorrow and exactly what time it is in that place. It's quite a nice graphical representation of world time. So as I mentioned already, I don't have the original CD, but thankfully there's a website which has all the original ISOs uploaded to it, sonyclie.org. So this means I can download the original ISO and have a go. What you'll see, the initial launch doesn't work, and even in compatibility mode it won't work on Windows 10, so I moved on to install the Hotsync drivers. So you'll notice here it says that if we want to sync basically any of the Sony Clies, because it starts with the S300, we need to tick the custom and select the USB. So this installs an add-on that allows the USB connection to act as a serial connector. There's also a note here that says that we need a patch if you run in Windows XP, so perhaps unsurprisingly, I couldn't get this to work under Windows 10. What's really odd about this is that Palm already has a USB connected Palm desktop that Sony could have licensed but clearly didn't, since when they moved to the M500 series they all became USB connected. Popping over to PalmDB and you'll find that there's the Clie Desktop 4.1. This works perfectly under Windows 10 and will allow you to sync your SL10 and install more programs. Tried using a couple of versions of the Memory Stick Connect but couldn't get any of them to work. On the CD itself there's a few extra applications, including Documents to Go, although I'll do a full video on Documents to Go at some point, so we're not going to look at that today. What is missing from this CD is the G-Movie program and also the Photo Stand program, and I've been unable to locate either of those on the internet. So if you have a copy, or you know where I could find one, perhaps you could upload it to PalmDB, or you could pop a link in my comment section. It'll disappear from the comments because Google censors such things, but it'll appear on my email and I'll add it to the description. So lurking on the CD is this file called ROM-hide, which installs as a preference tab and allows you to hide applications within ROM. The thing that's slightly funny about this is that the README text says not supported by Sony Electronics. However, scrolling down to the bottom, it also says copyright Sony Electronics, so presumably they made it. Why they wouldn't support it is beyond me. That said, it could be a useful application, as you might prefer to use Power One calculator and then hide the standard Palm calculator. So what do I think of the EL10? So honestly, I really like it. It's a little bit smaller front on than the M500, although it is thicker widthways, but being able to use AAA batteries can be useful, particularly if you're away from a power supply for any length of time. That brings me to a slight issue with this, and that is that the backup battery in here is now defunct. I took it to bits to have a quick look, and there appears to be 4 button cells that act as the backup supply. This makes it fiddly and expensive to replace, so I'm going to have a look at doing a simpler replacement sometime in the future. However, if you've done this replacement already, I'd love to hear from you below and how you did it and how successful it was. The problem with the backup battery not working means that it needs plugging into an actual power supply before changing the batteries, otherwise everything is lost. Add to that the fact that EL10 won't charge through the USB socket but requires a proper Sony Clie adapter. Suddenly you go from being able to simply change your batteries to lugging a power supply around. Not particularly convenient. Assuming there's a simple workaround the backup battery, however, then this is an excellent device and far superior in my opinion to the M500. It's both faster and snappier in operation, got that high resolution screen with excellent contrast and a very bright backlight. The missing memo pad isn't really an issue, and you do gain a few nice features including Clie Paint, PG Photo Viewer, and of course the inbuilt backup. It would be nice if you could record voice memos, but that functionality doesn't really arrive until OS 5. Perhaps you've owned one of these, or perhaps you disagree, or maybe you think there's a much better option out there, in which case pop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't subscribed, please do. My name's Hugh, this is Handheld Computing, and I hope to see you next time.